All right. Great. So, what you do for friends and family, which is what Richard is, he calls and says, hey, I need you to come to this event. Brian calls and says, hey, can you do this? So everything switched. I jumped on the first flight coming back from Madrid yesterday to make sure that I was here to do this, and this is fun. I get to stand on stage and relax. There's any analysts in the audience? Any reporters? All right, so yeah, watch her. Where'd she go? You raised your hand. Watch that young lady there. I'm standing between you and lunch, which is always tough in case anyone's hangry. Go ahead and feel free to step out. There's some good cheesecake. Get your sugar rush. Step back in. We'll try and make this more of a conversation, make it informal. I stood up on the stage here, and that's about all I'll do. Now it's down here with you. So we'll have a quick conversation about blockchain, and less about blockchain than the outcomes and capabilities, because I think if we start with blockchain, you'll get caught up in a lot of what we're seeing in the market. Because what we're seeing in the market is really kind of this thought of it's just the next thing. It's just the next thing. You're the hamster on the wheel. And this is the next bright, shiny object that is going to solve everyone's problems. You're just going to show up with your big bucket of blockchain and spread it across my problems. And everybody's going to get better. And everyone's going to make a lot of money because there's a lot of stuff in that bucket. So that's not it. And we all know that. We all know that if it was that easy, we would have done it a long time ago. But we didn't. Instead, we find out there's a lot tougher than that. And this thing that we're talking about isn't just the hype. There are actually companies doing this now. It took HTTP IP 3 decades to come to business readiness, and this is 10 years in, and that's what I want to talk about today. It's not crypto. I don't want to talk crypto. If you want to talk crypto, that's someplace else. I don't know. I don't deal in crypto. What I'm talking about is blockchain for the enterprise. Blockchain that's really seeing real results. Not experiments, not test cases, but things that are really happening with real companies, with real outcomes. That's about as basic as it gets. Since there are no reporters, or at least any that showed themselves. Corner over there, there's a reporter. Great. Take his phone from him. Hide it. Now, I said anything's fair game here. It's very casual. This isn't a 3-tier theater. You're all here, and that's why I said conversation. If you want to raise your hand, it's a small enough and intimate environment that if you have a question or you want to call BS on something, call it out. Because I learned from those things. If there's no BS on the slides, but if there's something you want to talk about, feel free to chime in. Make it a conversation. So this thought of trailblazers, that's what I want to talk about. Some of the things that I'll show you, some of the companies, there's many, but we don't have that much time and you're all hungry. The challenge with this thought of trailblazers is that, in fact, bad color choice here, but of the 26,000 projects that were done a year ago, ran through GitHub, only 8% of those, or 6% of those, actually are still going. So you have 94% of those that are parked somewhere. Does that mean they were bad ideas? Yes. Got the answer. I'm going to keep coming back to you. Yes. Well, probably I'd say of those, probably 90% were, but the other 10% probably just didn't have enough fuel or backing to keep going. There's a lot of, if we use that fuel analogy, there's lots of Ferraris and nice cars sitting on the highway of success, just out of fuel. So somewhere in there, they just didn't get the backing, they didn't get the support, or there was just too much of this story. This tail or tall tailblazer is where we changed that trailblazer, where there was this great story that was told, which led to big fail blazers. This is where you appease me. There's going to be some more Jimmy Fallon-esque wordplay, so you just appease me, even if you are hungry. It's the only way you'll get out of here, right? So why do we see this? Because it's the tech hype, right? It's, oh, blockchain is just look at that big bucket of blockchain that I mentioned before. That thought that, well, if I just say the word, that's going to up my value a little bit higher. We've seen that happen in the market as well. And if I end the sentence with blockchain, everyone will say, oh, he must be really smart, right? So we know that if we focus on that, that's the wrong thing. So I'll try not to say this bad word that many times more in this presentation. So we'll forget about that. And we'll get out of the thought that we're going to go do science experiments or test and try. So, you know, how many people have done POCs or POVs in their companies? So POC, everyone know the POC, right? What is it?
Proof of concept.
Proof of concept. So you said it out loud because you know I was standing right in front of you. I probably just looking. That's right. So that's your proof of concept. Or POV. What's the POV?
Proof of value.
Proof of value.
Point of view.
Point of view as well. So you can get that. How about a POI? Proof of incompetence. This is what we see happen often, and our clients come to us and tell us, that's where I got this. One of the clients came up to me and said, well, we said we were going to do it on our own, and we were smart enough, and we were going to run after this. And he said, and I said, so what'd you do? Oh, we did a POI. And so that's where I stole it from. Right? And I said, yeah, so I get it. And they said, so we really want to understand what's real. We ran after something that wasn't. We said we were going to solve a problem. And in fact, the problem didn't even need blockchain. It was not even a requirement for blockchain. So that's the start. It's what's this outcome? Think about the outcome first, then walk your way back into it. Many of us know this from other technologies that have been out there. Because if you focus on just the word, in this case, blockchain, you're going to end up with a little block pain. This is when it kicks in. Stay with me. I think there's like 4 of these. From block pain, then you end up to block blame. Because you're going to say, who came up with this anyway? And then the finger pointing starts. And once the finger pointing starts, then it's no one's fault, but in fact, it's everyone's fault, and there's a little bit of block shame. And in the end, you find out that you have no block game. That's it. That's all I got. That's it. There's no more of that. No more. So we joke, but it's the truth. That's the sad part. And we walk into client after client, and I'm not talking small clients. I'm talking your enterprise clients that we all would know if I said their names. They have lots of money to do this, but they also have lots of money to lose if they don't do it right. And what they're trying to do is get it right as quickly as possible. So we all know that, you know, if you use your proper, in our case we call it IBM design thinking, but you write design principles, that if you fail fast, you'll succeed sooner. So it's picking the outcome. Put the outcome first before you start throwing this bright, shiny thing at the thing that we're calling blockchain. So, big disclaimer. When you're hearing me talk, know that it's coming from IBM. This is not an IBM commercial, regardless of the fact that I have a big billboard on my chest, right? I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't care if you buy a damn thing from IBM. Well, I'm lying if I say that. So let's not lie. Reporter, write that down. Analysts will catch up later. So it's not a commercial. This is just fact, but we're a 107-year-old startup. That's what we are. I've started business outside of IBM. I'm doing it in IBM. That's all I've done for the last 15 years. And it's yet another one. And in doing that, yes, we know we have to move fast. We're a cloud and platform-based business. And you see, as we just released our 1Q earnings, that with that comes a whole new revenue. That comes with that a whole new revenue model. It moves fast, grows fast. That's what we're running after. Many, many engagements. This number is somewhat aged with the 450, but these are real clients, real engagements. That's where we're learning quickly. A community of other startups and others in and on the platform of 200 plus. We have now 35 plus client networks. This is where these thoughts are coming from. That's what I'm pulling our clients' thoughts and presenting them back to you. This isn't an IBM presentation. This is an IBM client presentation, and some of you may be in the audience right now as IBM clients. I'm just telling you what they're telling us so that hopefully you can use that to your benefit. So let's think about the promise of these new outcomes. So what if we could change the way we do business, the way we exchange value, because that's all blockchain is. How many people do not understand blockchain? All right. You can go to some other room and they'll explain it to you. That's not this presentation. All seriousness, just think of blockchain as a way to exchange value without having any intermediaries between you. That's it. Just net it out like that. Think of it being the availing to us what has been elusive for as long as we've thought data was important. That long. It avails two things: access to data, shared access, in a permissioned network. That's what we deal with at IBM. In a permissioned network, and that data is high quality. Access, quality, absolute quality. They didn't say right, because that data could be wrong, but you know it's wrong and you know who put it there. And you say, oh, can it be hacked? Can it be changed? Is it immutable? It's not immutable. You can change it, but you also know who changed it and when. Access and quality. That's it. So what if we could move all those intermediaries out? What if? What if a supply chain that typically looks like this is very linear, if we were able to say, look, from the producers, and this is an example of farm to fork, something I'll show you in a second, or an example I'll show you in a second. If you think of going from farm to fork, all of those handshakes that happen along the way. Each one of those handshakes are just getting something from point A to point B, and eventually, if we put the outcome first, that's all of us, because we're all consumers and we believe we're the center of the universe, right? We're the most important thing in this room. That's what you were thinking, right? Yeah. So if that's the case, all we're concerned about is what we're about to consume, the value that we get out of it, the price, the quality, the reputation, all those things that we're banking on, eventually our positive experience, that's all we want. Each one of those handshakes along the way is taking some of the value out or adding it in. Think about it. You say, oh, well, it's confirmed. But what if you didn't have to have that intermediary in there to confirm that it got from point A to point B, that it is what it is? How many people eat organic food? Come on, raise your hand. Don't be shy. It's okay to be healthy, right? Or so you think, because the fact is, so we're told, there's more organic food consumed than produced every year. So go ahead, raise your hand again. Be proud. That's right. That's all of you. Me too. So how do we know that those things are there? Well, if we could get rid of the intermediaries, we could actually return some of that value back to the system, to the end user, to all of us. That could be in higher value. Maybe it's higher price. We might pay a higher price because we do it already for that organic food, because we think it's organic, but you'd pay because it's higher value. Or maybe it would be a lower price, greater certainty. In fact, maybe even higher safety, because we know what we were consuming, as we know that food scares are out there. So let me use that as an entree into a question, or an example here, since I mentioned food safety. So I'm going to ask our AV master in the back to click on the play button, if you can, on this, because I don't know how to do it.
Just a pack of mangoes. I came into my staff meeting, I put them on the table, and I said, your traceback exercise starts right now. And we timed how long it took them to get the information for each point in the food system all the way back to the farm. And I'm not going to give you the results after the pilot, but it's going to be good. When a customer shops in our stores, we know they expect great prices. We know they expect fast, clean, and friendly service. But an unspoken expectation is that they expect the products that they buy in our stores to be safe. When there's a food event or a food scare, what you want to do is you want to be fast, but you want to be right. That food product is guilty until proven innocent. We at Walmart will actually pull all of the product until we know what is the implicated product and we can put the safe product back out. And so imagine if we could pinpoint with certainty within minutes, not days, that it was the implicated product. Walmart and IBM are working to make that a reality. If you think about the food system, it's pretty complex. It involves farmers, processors, distributors. And the way traceability is done today, each segment of the food system does it their own way. Most actually do it on paper or on systems that don't speak to each other. And so you can never have a full view of what's happening in the food system. What we hope to do with blockchain is bring all food safety system stakeholders and collaborate so that we do it one best way. We can do it very quickly and efficiently. Blockchain is a digital ledger that allows different segments of the food system to capture information about the product, what they've done to it, where that product has been. If we're linking that data with other data points, the Internet of Things, all that information will yield to insights that will allow us to have a safer, more affordable, and sustainable food system. But we don't believe traceability is the goal. We believe that transparency is the ultimate goal. Blockchain will give us the ability to not only track where food came from, but how it was produced. Was it produced safely? Was it produced responsibly? Is it sustainably grown? How many dates of shelf life are left on that product? The food system is a shared responsibility, and for blockchain and traceability and transparency to work, we need a lot of people working together. And so we're excited to be working with IBM on this blockchain initiative. But it's not just Walmart and IBM. We actually have some of our suppliers participating in this pilot. We've got some universities also participating in the pilot. And so we'll make sure that all stakeholders work together for a safer and better food system.
So Walmart as an example. When I talk about that end-to-end and returning value to the system, that was the outcome that they ran after. It wasn't, hey, can we do a blockchain project? They said, let's figure out how we can perhaps save lives and definitely save money, because as Frank mentioned, and Frank and I were together last week at UT Austin, speaking at McCombs, and the fact that transparency is the focus is what's most important, because that transparency took what used to be 7 days. It took them 7 weeks. They were best in class, Walmart, to find out how long, or to find out where the origin of that food came from. In this case, a mango. 7 days to figure that out. And that's best in class. On the blockchain, 12 seconds. Scary. I thought something was wrong. I said, run this, something's broken, Frank. Don't forget that. No, they ran it again. It was 12, from 12 seconds, it went to 2.2. We had a lag in the network. So that is returning value to the system. That is taking in a week, think of how much food could be wasted in a week because you had to throw it out. 1/3 of all processed food is wasted because you have to throw it out before you can find out whether it's safe or not. That's what we're talking about when we say outcomes. And as mentioned also by Frank, he says it's not just them, it's their entire networks. Not only is it their entire network of suppliers that they're working with, but they're also working with their competition. Kroger, out of the Midwest, they're arch rivals. So for first person that Frank pointed me to, Jason, go to Kroger. We need to work with them. Dole, Tyson, Hagmans, all of these stores and producers and suppliers came together because of the value. And blockchain proves Metcalfe's law day in and day out. And that's just every node or person that's added to the network increases the value of the network exponentially. And that's what we see. It's a team sport. Blockchain is a team sport, and you can't just have one player that says, I'm going to run it. So again, why the hype isn't true when you just think of it as a thing. It's a true team. So let's look at another example.
Quick question on the previous slide.
Yes.
1% reduction in foodborne illnesses sounds like a really small percentage. Could you explain that?
1% on the prior slide. 1% of increase of foodborne illnesses equates to $7 billion. So that's just 1%. You're right. So the question was, 1% sounds very small. and intentionally so. That's why we put it up there, because if we could just address 1%, that's $7 billion in return. So thanks for calling that out. This is the value that you have when you take 7 days to 2.2 seconds. So that is a key point. So let's look at another thought or another example just to drive home this point of from point A to point B. And if I can ask you to hit play on this one, take 3 minutes, I believe.
Demonstration of how IBM and Maersk are partnering to digitize and simplify global trade using blockchain to create trust and transparency in the supply chain. Global trade functions much as it has since the introduction of the shipping container in 1956. Manual, paper-based processes are still common, and information about the status of goods is locked away in organizational silos. Today, 90% of goods in global trade are carried by the shipping industry, with the supply chain slowed by the complexity and sheer volume of point-to-point communication across a loosely coupled web of land transportation providers, freight forwarders, customs brokers, governments, ports, and ocean carriers. IBM and Maersk are addressing this problem with a distributed, permission platform accessible by the supply chain ecosystem designed to exchange event data and handle document workflows. Maersk and IBM are employing blockchain technology to create a global, tamper-proof system for digitizing trade workflow and tracking shipments end-to-end, eliminating frictions including costly point-to-point communications. The collaboration will launch with the potential ability to track millions of container journeys per year and integrate with customs authorities on selected trade lanes. In a recent test by Maersk, shipping a single container of flowers from Kenya to the port of Rotterdam resulted in a stack of nearly 200 communications. Using this example, we will examine how blockchain has been implemented to create trust and security in the digitized document workflow and improve the efficiency of global supply chains. Here we can see each distinct entity involved in the transaction: the growers, export authorities, ports, customs, and importers. Shipping from the port of Mombasa requires signatures from 3 different agencies approving the export and 6 documents that describe the origin, chemical treatments, quality of the produce, and customs duties. Firstly, using a PC or mobile device, the Kenyan farm submits a packing list that becomes visible to all participants. This action initiates a smart contract that enforces an export approval workflow between the 3 agencies. As each agency signs, the status is updated for all to see. Simultaneously, information about the inspection of the flowers, the sealing of the refrigerated container, the pickup by the trucker, and the approval from customs is communicated to the port of Mombasa, allowing them to prepare for the container. All actions relating to the documents and the physical goods are captured and shared: which documents were submitted, when and by whom, where the flowers are and who is in possession of them, and the next steps in their journey. Flowers are perishable, so it's crucial that there are no delays or missteps. Blockchain provides secure data exchange and a tamper-proof repository for these documents and shipping events. This system could significantly reduce delays and fraud, saving billions of dollars annually. And according to the WTO, reducing barriers within the international supply chain could increase worldwide GDP by almost 5% and total trade volume by 15%. For more information on how IBM can help.
So there you have another example of the thought of pulling together the blockchain and the outcome of the value. So when we think of where this is going, think of those handshakes again that we talked about. Here it took 200 documents. And so since I gave you the 7 days to 2.2 seconds, it's maybe less dramatic. But from 200 documents, this came down to 20. So 10% of what it was to begin with. Now, people say, oh, well, it's just the paper. And it's true. If you want to find a good place to point this capability, you look for the 3 Ps. They've been around for a while, but it's people, process, and paperwork. And so you say, wow, this is where we could apply this. And in this case, you say, oh, well, it was paperwork. But think of the process behind that paperwork. How many people had to shift that from one place to the next? Or the faxes. People still send faxes. The faxes that had to be sent, right? And all the processes tied to that. That's where the true capability comes from. Not only that, but subtly, there's this thought of being able to see these things move from point A to point B. Think of the security in that. Another key component here. When you think that now we're keeping track of not just big boxes, but those boxes also are in a certain position. Oh, and guess what? There's a temperature gauge on that as well. And so now when we think of secure identity, because that's something we promise in this technology, it's not just personal identity, people, but entity identity. Is that thermometer that's on that container, that's on that ship? Because if it's not, then you could always spoof it. So now we have a whole new level of value that the chain is bringing. That's what we see here. And there's another subtlety here where they say the farmers in Mombasa. The farmers. Now you have a farmer, and just if they have internet connectivity on their smart device, now they're in business. How cool is that? Talking about opening up markets, talking about bringing people in. That's where these numbers, these wonderful high level numbers of opening up new markets and GDP by 5%, which is huge. You think 1% of huge is 7 billion. 5% of GDP? Large, because now we have new players. That's the promise of blockchain. And we think about opening markets. Here's another example, and I'll save you on time here for a video, but this is a bank. This is where I just came from in Europe this week, with 9 banks that have come together in a group called We Trade that said, was that a hurry up, Jason? It flashes on and off. Cut it out, I'm hungry. These 9 banks have come together, and these 9 banks are typically competitors. But they've come together in a blockchain network to say, listen, let's share data, share information, so that between our clients for trade finance, and there's a common word coming out of each one of my examples here, trade finance, we can now open up markets to small and medium-sized enterprises. So, because the hurdles were too high, too much paperwork, too high of risk because of lack of data. But if we can share trusted data, we can actually help each other instead of competing. We'll still compete, but high waters will raise all boats because we'll increase throughput. Let's collaborate in a trusted permission network, and we will all benefit. That's a new way to do business. That will open up markets beyond what we all think. That's where, if you're in a startup, think about these things that are going to drive that. That's where your opportunity is. And looking at new markets and becoming a player amongst players in the network and driving that network effect. Because ultimately, what you have are each one of these networks I just talked about. Common word, trade, consumer trade, trade finance, actual trade and shipping. These networks ultimately are going to start working together. And we say, what's the direction of this? What do we see? I heard earlier, there's going to be multiple chains. That's right. Everyone's, which browser is the right browser? How many people bet on Netscape? Yeah. So it was this big war. Well, it's not a war because people are going to come together. I had a wonderful question. A gentleman asked me just when I walked up, says, Jason, your shirt should say IBM Hyperledger or something. It's like, no, you know what? We work across platforms. Yes, we had to pick a horse and ride it hard and fast to get out in front as soon as possible. So we made a bet. We are going to drive one of the communities, open source communities, far and fast, and it was Hyperledger. And yes, that's where all these examples come from. We also have other examples on Axony. Our payments, our universal payments is on Stellar. I worked with Corda and R3. So everyone's, but you're not supposed to. People love conflict. There's 13 books out there. I counted all the titles. People love it when there's something crazy. People write books and articles on conflict. So I was sitting with Frank the ENS last week, as I said, and someone said, well, the elephant in the room is that Amazon is running after Walmart. I looked at Frank and said, Frank, are you scared of Walmart? No, I'm not scared of Amazon because they're going to work together. He's not scared of Kroger. They're going to work together in this shared environment, right? And so how's that work? Because these networks are ultimately going to be network of networks. They're going to come together. You're going to have platforms that will have to collaborate. You're not going to be able to say, I'm just on one. Because there will be specificity demanded by clients based on their industry and by function. Whether that's a payment, function, whether that's an inventory function. Predictions are out there. You can make your own. But you will see a network of networks coming together. This we know because it's already happening with our clients today. Again, this is what our clients are showing us and telling us. So with that, they're real. That's right. So how are they doing that? Real quickly, I'll give you, just a quick snapshot of what we're seeing over the last couple years. Is that it started out with a lot of people experimenting within their own company, then going between companies, and then ultimately setting up new business models like I've shown you. And the thought was, let's understand and then expand and extend. And this is where we saw, the year of blockchain tourism was 2016. Last year was the year of the POV and POC, POIs also. And this year is the year of production. People are driving into production networks, driving blockchain production networks faster and harder. And so as they do that, what have we seen? A lot of these clients here are the ones who are the sources of the information I'm giving you here. There's many more, but I made sure I pulled out the ones that were sources for this, somewhat of my bibliography for the discussion we just had. With that, what most of our trailblazers have and what has to be there is you have to make sure that you have experience across all of the business. It's not a technology game anymore. This is truly a collaborative business and technology effort. It's not a let me run my blockchain project. It's like let me understand how my legacy capability is going to work with this new capability. What's the outcome that I'm going to run to? It's no longer buy a product and waterfall it. This is one that has to start with design, business design, and understanding of today as well as where you're going to go quickly because you can find yourself to that bridge to nowhere. So you have to make sure that there's an end-to-end capability with experience to make that happen, and also a robust technology infrastructure in the cloud, or some are demanding, depending upon the industry, on-prem, that's going to allow your systems to match and make it happen. So, there is a little shameless quote there. I should have pulled that off. But it, in fact, says there are others like us that we happen to work with. Again, people think they're our competitors, but those are the likes of KPMG, who we're working with now, along with Deloitte. All those we're supposed to compete with, but we partner with because it's just that big of an opportunity out there and a challenge as well as an opportunity to undertake. With that, questions? All of these examples are not using just IBM Hyperledger technology. As I mentioned, there's a mic running around. As I mentioned, we have delivered projects and worked on projects in Ethereum. Also with Axony, our universal payments is on Stellar. I have teams working with Corda, so we work cross-platform. Our first effort was with Hyperledger. So Hyperledger is wonderful. The majority of our work is on Hyperledger. Why? Because that's the bet we made to get it out in front. And guess what? Right now, for the moment, we're out in front. That's why I can give you real examples. I sat in the other one, yes, and we had teams in our research group working with Hashcraft. Yes, we know many. Yes, sir.
So your example with Maersk. So a centralized database is replaced by the distributed ledger. What about the front-end application? Who owns and runs that for all these people to interface and interact and do the workflows and all those kinds of things?
Great question. So with Maersk, and Maersk is also, it's a JV that we announced. We have a joint venture with Maersk. That was just an example, and then it expanded into an actual joint venture that we have. And the question is, who owns the front end or the UI UX that's going to be there? And there are different types of networks. When we think of a founder-led network like a Walmart that says, we think this is a great idea and we're going to work with our network and pull others in, a founder can do that. And we as IBM sometimes, or whomever starts that founder-led, can own that, and they'll be responsible. In the consortium, And all the consortia that we've worked with, the consortium then owns that, as well as the network. And so like the 9 banks that I mentioned in WeTrade, they all put their initial seed fund in to then establish their own network. And they then monitor and manage the UI and what they're doing in a very smart way, because outcomes are their first is they're allowing the market to decide what that UI, UX should be. Just as Walmart's saying, what do our suppliers really want to do in order to onboard into our network? Yes, sir.
I'll talk real loud, Brian. Thanks. So you talk about this is immutable, right? The data, and that's and widespread. So how's it going to be able to change? Like if your company gets into the global shipping or the food thing, are you going to ever be able to change?
So since it's immutable, can you change? Can you change the data?
Well, or how are you going to, or what are the thoughts on forward compatibility might be a better way to put the question.
Forward compatibility, so that's good. So change of technology is a key interest. And I go back to the thought that we're now on version 1.1 of our fabric itself. I think some of our other platforms we work with are all on 1.2, 1.3 in that. So it will continue to evolve. I don't think that's going to change any more differently than it has in the past. I do, meaning that the technology is going to continue to evolve. What you have here now is this thought that there's going to be some agility, because it's really this focus on data. It's giving access to data, and I'll start sounding like a program, but it's access to that data, and that it's quality data. I think that what will continue to happen is evolution of new technologies. Also tying of existing capabilities into this platform. Think of blockchain and a blockchain platform only as an accelerant. It is not the end answer. So this will allow opportunity for AI to come in, because what does AI need? Data, accurate data. I mentioned secure identity. IoT comes in as well. And guess what else was implied? Automation. So all these other buzzwords that talk about digital reinvention, another one of my favorite words. What the hell is that? But this digital reinvention thing actually can start to happen because you have an accelerant called blockchain.
Guys, give it up for Jason Kelley. Jason.